Star Wars The Force Awakens' 2-hour and 16-minute runtime and cracking pace means that there's a lot of Star Wars packed into this film. That being said, there's still a lot of unused concept art, a discarded script, the George Lucas version, plus scenes that were shot that, like the rest of this, didn't make it into the final film. So now seems like a good a time as any to go through all of that, bearing in mind spoilers, but also bear in mind that you've definitely seen The Force Awakens, so who cares? Before J.J. Abrams came on board and a script had even been written, a team of conceptual artists were instructed to make a start on a process called guided imagery, much of which can be found in the book The Art of Star Wars The Force Awakens. These were to serve as imagery that most likely wouldn't make it into the final film, but could serve as inspiration for what would follow. Some ideas were actually the catalyst for others, such as Sam and Kira, who would become Finn and Rey, and the idea of a Jedi killer that would eventually evolve into Kylo Ren. But we did get a lot of unused pieces, like a blue and red double lightsaber, primitive versions of the iconic weapons, and a Luke Skywalker who was trapped and being covered in sand. With screenwriter Michael Arndt on board in 2013, his story began to take shape. An opening sequence was devised that mirrored the opening of the 1977 original, this time concluding with a crashed Star Destroyer. Part of this story also revolved around retrieving information for the lost Jedi temples inside the now underwater Imperial throne room from Return of the Jedi, and a sequence that involved Rey, who was still Kira, shredding 2 Imperial Star Destroyers with a lightsaber. Though some ideas did make it into the final film, such as one of the protagonists being a stormtrooper that's defected, the majority was cut, including a very present Luke Skywalker, because it was thought whenever he appeared, he pulled attention away from the new protagonists. After J.J. Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan took over writing duties, more familiar elements began to appear, none of which were George Lucas's ideas that Disney actually bought in their Lucasfilm acquisition, which included that the new leads were in their early teens. Abrams at one point was keen on a Vader imposter appearing in the film, with the intention of tormenting Luke Skywalker, and another idea that Vader himself wasn't a one-off, and his title and look could be passed on to another. It was also around this time that Vader's melted helmet was to be the driving force of the movie, and not the discovery of the Skywalker lightsaber and the search for Luke. An early opening sequence actually had the lightsaber fly into frame after the opening crawl, crash landing and then finding its way to Rey. Another early idea was to have Poe Dameron die after his action-packed introduction. Finn still defecting from the First Order, but after witnessing them eject some rebel soldiers out of an airlock, a scene with a Jedi killer destroying X-Wings using the Force, a giant drill that was used to infiltrate Maz Kanata's castle, and BB-8's introduction, when he was then known as Surly, which would take place on a repair conveyor belt, with the droids that were beyond repair being thrown into a furnace. Also, the idea of Han Solo living through the narrative and appearing in subsequent films was also considered, but it was thought that his initial arc, which was to be him reconciling with Leia after their split, wouldn't evolve the character or drive the story forward. There are a dozen or so deleted scenes that could appear on the Blu-ray in April, one of which being that Maz Kanata actually travels to the Resistance base and hands over Luke's lightsaber to Leia, but her appearance there was considered superfluous, which explains why her character just disappears. That clip is actually shown briefly in one of the trailers, and is one of the few sequences from the trailer that doesn't make it into the final film, including Kylo Ren igniting his lightsaber in the snow. A number of details appear in the novelization of The Force Awakens that don't appear in the film. Rey very nearly sells BB-8 to Unkar Plutt, even deactivating him at one point. Chewbacca actually ends up tearing off one of his arms when he follows Rey to Maz Kanata's castle, searching for the Falcon. Also, we get a scene that explains how Poe Dameron escaped Jakku after crash landing, and Rey's vision of the past also involved her actually witnessing the Luke and Vader battle on Bespin, as opposed to just being dropped into that location. That's why there's been both a Luke and Vader action figure released in the Force Awakens toy line. The character of Snoke is also elaborated on, with one of his sequences from the film expanded to the point where it explains that he's old enough to have witnessed the rise and fall of the Galactic Empire, and makes mention of what makes Ben Solo so important and so strong.
I've never had a student with such promise. It is where you are from, what you are made of, the dark side and the light.
Leia also has a discussion with Han concerning how she knew Snoke was watching Ben from an early age, for that very reason. Snoke also telepathically passes a message onto Rey to kill Ren when she has the upper hand in their final confrontation, which she ignores. And we also get another small clue in relation to her origin, with Kylo Ren showing some recognition in regards to who she is. To me though, one of the most fascinating aspects of the film that was to be included was an Anakin Skywalker Darth Vader hybrid Force ghost, which was to acknowledge that some Force users, and this includes Luke, are aware of both their dark and light side and how it's not separate from them. The quote that inspired this is from the fantasy novel A Wizard of Earthsea and reads, "When you light a candle, you also cast a shadow." That just about does it though. Now no doubt more information will come to light regarding the inclusion of more content that didn't make it into the final film, but in the meantime, if you want, you can subscribe and check out some other videos on my channel that might interest you, including that one on the left concerning Rey's potential origin, or you can even check out my movie, TV show, comic podcast, The Weekly Planet. All that can be found linked there and below. Question though, is there anything here that you wished made the cut in The Force Awakens? Or even something that I didn't mention, like how Vader's old castle was going to be used as the Resistance base? Or maybe you've even got some ideas of your own that you would have liked to have seen make it in. If you have any thoughts, please feel free to leave them in the comments. Alright, thanks everyone, take care.